In the DAW with Clockvice, Vorso and Pensive. Do check out our podcast, Behind the DAW, for the more philosophical, emotional, artistic side of music, and also link below for a sample pack full of sounds made from this video. And so let's go in the DAW. Did you literally pick like one snare each?
I do remember we did a lot of piece by piece. So we started off with the original concept that I had, and that was just the intro and that first drop part. That snare I made, and I would have made that, wow, like 2 years ago. I stemmed it out and I sent it to those guys. There were two main snares.
There's this cheeky little bit of reverb that's moved on from the snare, which like adds to the groove quite a lot there.
And then eventually those guys, Tom and Lucas, added in snares in different parts.
Like this dude.
That's just the standard crane bamboo snare.
It's almost like each section changes, which is one of my favorite bits of the track. So it's not like you've taken like 8 bars and looped it for 3 or 4 minutes. How did you piece together the arrangement like this? How do you approach that as a collaboration?
Before you answer that, I have a theory. I want to see if it's true. So each of you made a drop and then put it all together. Tommy Tom number 2, which is Pensive, I think you did the very first one, and then I think that Lucas, Clockvice, did the second one, and I think Vorso did the last one. Am I correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's not far off, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
We did do each section definitely independent. The original part of it, I started off, and then I know the creaky lead part was definitely Lucas, and then there was, the one just after the creaky lead one, that one was Tom. And yeah.
We sort of all added little details to every drop, so there's a little bit of everyone.
It came together really naturally.
I think, yeah.
It did. There wasn't any issue when we were like, oh, how do we transition from the first drop into the second drop? It just doesn't sound natural at all, just really fit well.
Follow-up question to that comes from Garrett Moore. He commented on the Facebook post.
Hi, Garrett.
He says, I would be curious on how the workflow went about this. Did you guys take turns and sharing projects or stems, using Splice? How did it start out, and how did you guys just basically work on it all at the same time, or were you sending it back and forth? What was your process?
At first, it was just a work in progress by Tom O'Brien, Pensive. And I heard it on his SoundCloud and I was just like, yeah, call that, gimme. And then I think Vorso caught on to that as well.
I think we both independently asked to collab.
Yeah. Did you have any creative differences when making the track? Like one person liked one idea, one person didn't? If so, how do you approach that? So I've heard one solution to that being, if any single person doesn't like it, then you keep working on it until everyone likes it.
It always was a bit of a foreign sort of genre for me because I usually make a lot less down-tempo stuff, and this was very big for me. It was very different. I was always pretty into the idea. I wasn't really keen on the creaky lead at first.
I wasn't keen on EQ in the creaky lead. I heard that and I went, oh no.
Once you listen to it and you get used to it, I'm in love with it now.
So this drop 1A, this is mainly you, right, Pensive?
Yep.
Can I just point out that's my favourite bit of the whole scene, the little pop hits.
So tell us about your process with this part of Pensive. What was some of your techniques?
So I started off with just the original vocal recording and of my old roommate, Henry. He was German.
Shout out, Henry.
One late night, he came into my room and he said, oh, Tom, I need to borrow your recording equipment. I need to record voiceover for my assignment on the biomechanics of the badminton swing. So we've started recording away. His English isn't great. And so he gets to this part where he's trying to say, by analyzing the swing, we are able to discover. And I've just lost it at that point. I'm like, Henry, you cannot say that properly. We've got to re-record it. And so that recording is my German friend trying to say to discover and us cracking up because all I could hear was Tudiskava. Said, Tommy, you need to remix this, make it into a song or something. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a go. So yeah, a few months later, I just threw a little piece together in like a few hours and I sent it to him. I said, oh, here, Henry, happy days, there you go. There's your remix. And then, yeah, the rest is history. I showed Tom and Lucas and they were keen on it and it ended up somehow becoming Tudiskava.
And then it was played out by Bassnectar.
Yeah, I always think it's strange to think that same audio is being played on like massive sound systems to that many people.
Yeah, the drop started out, I chopped up the vocals and
like Josh Pan pitching around or something.
I do that a lot with the vocals I use, and I've done that in a few times in my previous tracks where you have a delay with just a very short time. It just makes those sort of ad-lib vocals sound really nice. So yeah, that main bass, it's a pretty simple one.
That is the basses, as it's written out here.
Twisty boy. Could you just solo Twisted Boy? I want to know what that is. Ooh.
That is a sound that I made when I was working on that collab remix for Culprate with Frequent, and it's a Reese put through a vocal shifter in Logic.
The sequencing in there is actually really, really unique, and I find that every time I listen to it, it really gets my head just bobbing. How did you go about sequencing everything in there?
When I made it, I just had the intention of making some sort of halftime thing. Yeah, I'm not particularly sure what makes it so bouncy. I think a lot of it actually does come from the modulation. The modulation of the bass is almost as if it's double times to the drum beat.
As well, what you had in the original was a lot of really quite musical interplay between some of these elements. Talk between them, question and answer kind of thing. I just did that so I could play the little part here again.
And definitely the vocals.
Yeah.
It would not be as catchy and as groovy without those little vocals. They're pretty essential.
Can we take a look at the sound design of the creaky lead? I've been waiting for this for months now.
Can I just point out we've got the sort of 3 layers of snare, and snare. I think you sent this to Mr. Bill and he just said more of the lead.
I don't have the initial version of the first one, but I have got the second one. It started out as this little dude. And if I remove all the processing on that, so I think a lot of the high-end stuff comes from the grain delay over here, which just pitched up 12 tones.
Oh, lovely.
Very high frequency, so it's just adding a lot of fast little boys. And then I've got it warped as well, and texture mode, which adds a bit of that creakiness to it. I'll see if I can get it back to where it was. Yeah, it's like a combination of all this processing that's going on there. Grain delay, which is adding a bit of high-end. Then just reverb, small size, short decay time, which is adding a bit of that metallic tone to it as well. And then there's the OTT, which is just bringing... Yeah. It gets really soft after you take that off. Just a glue compressor, just some soft clipping, like shave off the tops a bit, the transients. Auto filter, just taking out some low end on that. Side chain compression to the spooky ghost chain, and then just a limiter. So I think the original sound that it was this little boy. Let's see. Resonant sausage bass, that's the one.
I do like my sausages to be resonant.
Yeah, so I just pitched this one up, I think.
Yeah.
And then it became this, especially like the warp, the texture on that one. Because otherwise you can hear that it's one of these, but just pitched up a bit. But when you add that warp back in, it gets stretched out a whole lot. The other one, this one, started out as one of Pensive because I thought it sounded a bit Skrillexy, so I was like, oh, I love this. Oh, there it is.
No way, you made it from that?
I think so, yeah.
Jeez, I didn't even know that. Far out.
Oh yeah, that sound. I think it was this sound became, and I think it's all the same processing that I used on this one as well. Like the grain delay, reverb, OTT, like that stuff, and the grain stretching, the texture mode on the warp. Because I think it just straight up copied like the sample and just put the other bass in it instead.
Eddie, sit down. Who are you telling to sit down, man?
My dog wants a pat. So
how are you doing sidechain compression? Because I see lots of amplitude modulation. You doing it separately sound by sound, or?
Yeah, actually, one thing we did, which I'm not really sure why in hindsight, we stemmed with sidechain on. It's like a cardinal sin. None of us had any intentions of changing up the drum beat. I remember thinking to myself, why have we put it on sidechain? But that didn't bother me when I used it.
I think it was a channel that said blips. Were they unquantized?
That was a massive patch that I made where it was like some really low pitched saw and I was just pitching it up, and it's literally just an effects thing. Like some crackles, basically. I don't even notice it there.
We have a lot of like little stuff like that lying around in these projects. There's so many of those little 2-second effects things.
That's kind of one of you guys' trademarks things about your music, which is beautiful and that I love. Is there's just so much ear candy. Every time I listen to any of your songs, I always pick up just a little bit more every time because you incorporate ear candy every time. So it's beautiful. Keep that up, boys. Your drop, Vorso. there is something about this that's just like my head bobbing just loses its crap when this thing comes on. Tell me about it. What was your process with writing this part of the job?
When I started this bit, I had just made a new bass, and it is Alchemy because it was I made it with some sine waves and Camel Audio's Alchemy, doing some sort of stretching stuff. This is the one. Little bits that are actually turned into the main part of this drop, like that bit. Basically what I was doing was just chopping it up, trying to make a groove. I'd been listening to a lot of Ivy Lab and Shield and stuff like that, so I was all about doing like weird rhythms that are slightly offbeat. And the main thing was volume automation on it, was doing lots of fades and stuff, so it didn't quite sit on the beat properly. That kind of comes through in sections like this, or it's sort of thing. It's just basically loads of variations of that. And I remember I believe I left just the audio of that bass in there. So when it went back to Lucas and Tom, they moved it around and did some more edits to it. So it just led to loads of different versions of that. So you can hear that kind of came together. I wanted a really smacky snare. That was the main bit of it. The main layer of this snare was synthesized with operator, which was something that was quite new to me then, but I do like all the time now. And there's a lot of little vocal bits and just extra effects that you guys added later on. All of these, like...
What is all that? That is intriguing.
I have no idea. That was Tom, I think.
What were you doing with that, Tom?
With the vocal or the...
Yeah, because did that come from the original Tudiskava vocal?
Oh no, those are just things I pulled out of packs, I think.
Did you process them, or is how they are right here is how you pulled them out?
I think a lot of them still have that same delay with the very short time on them. Just high passed as well, because I hate the low end that you have in vocals, and I think that was pretty much it.
So primarily the texture, the tone that comes from that is from doing the very quick delay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was done on more or less all the vocals we had on this track, I think.